Hi there, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to Reading Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. Today we're looking at Chapter 9 of the Ethics, of Book 9, continuing on the question of friendship. So therefore, let's go into another dispute. He ends the last one dispute was the question of whether should you love yourself or your friend. And this one is a different dispute, namely, hence, let's go right to it, right here, right there. Okay. There is a dispute too regarding the happy person, namely whether or not he will need friends. So the truly happy one, the one who is in happiness, does the happy person need friends? So for people assert that those who are blessed and self-sufficient have no need of friends, since the good things are theirs already. So the good things are in other words, this idea that you're happy. That's what by happy means domania, which is fulfillment. You're fulfilled. You're in itself the idea of sufficient. This is why I don't like the word self-sufficient. This is it means having enough. It literally means that they're able to sustain themselves in that sense. They're not self sufficient, but they have enough to they're not dependent on others for survival in that sense, or their for their life. Okay, or living well. Right, they're blessed and self sufficient, or tacos, and have no need of friends since the good things are theirs already, and that since the happy are self sufficient or tacos, they have no need of anyone in addition. Whereas a friend, since he is another self, provides only what someone is unable to provide on his own. Hence the saying, when a daimon gives well, what need of friends? Right. This is 24. Euripides Orestes, the daimon was, at least in Plato, a sort of divine being inhabiting the realms between human beings and gods. The Greek word for happiness, eudaimonia, suggests a condition of having a good daimon on one side, right? The daimon, daimonia. Eudaimonia, happiness is having a good daimon on your side. Yet it, yet it seems strange to allot all that is good to the happy person, but not to give him friends, which are held to be the greatest of external goods. Right? The friends are the greatest of external goods in that sense. If Therefore, it seems strange, funny. It seems strange to allot all the goods to a happy person, but then not give him friends, because the goods are held to be of external good, the greatest of external goods. If it belongs more to a friend to do some good than to be done it, if it is also a mark of a good man, the agathos, and a virtue to be a benefactor, to be to do good to others. In other words, it's only mark of a good man, agathos, and a virtue to be a benefactor, to do good things. And if it is nobler, kalos, nobler, beautiful, more beautiful, to do good, agathos, to a friend than to strangers, then the spudaios, the serious person, will need those who may be done some good. In other words, people. In other words, if it's better to do, in other words, it's better to if it belongs more to a friend to do some good than to be done it, right, and it marks the good man to and virtue to be benefactor, and if it's nobler to do good things, do good to friends than to strangers. Hence, the serious person will need to have uh, um, will need those who may be done good, some good, right? Do good things to, right? Some friends. Hence, too, It is a matter for investigation whether one needs friends more in good fortunes than in bad, on the grounds that in bad fortunes a person needs. Okay, we're having a glitch here for some reason. The computer is saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, I gotta do something. I have to think about this more." It is being a very bad computer. Why is it being a very bad computer? Google is fighting with me. Someone in Google did something and saying, "I don't know." Okay, I have to slow down. No, no, hold on. I don't want you. Go back here, and I lost you. There you are. And it's still fighting with some reason. I don't know why it's fighting. Um, it's Google. Google is kind of like strange today. So let's say there's a hence two is a matter for investigation whether one needs friends more in good fortune than in bad, on the grounds that in bad fortune a person needs those who will benefit him, in good fortune those to whom he may do some good. So therefore, this is the thing: is it better to have friends in good times or bad times? Because in bad times they're to do good to you, but in good times you do good to them, right? Hence, it is perhaps strange also to make the blessed person solitary. In other words, something strange. But making the blessed person a solitary, in other words, alone, isolated, not having friends. No one would choose to have all good things by himself, since a human being is a political and is disposed by nature to live with others. In other words, this is, again, Aristotle is repeating his famous claim that it's in the politics, and also that man is political, that he is not a solitary creature, that the gods or a beast may be solitary creature, but the human beings are political, are social. No, we don't. I don't like the word social because social implies something. He uses Aristotle doesn't use the word social. He uses the word political. This means that they live together. They share some life to common. They need to share a life to common. So therefore, the blessed person is solitary. This is strange, he says. Why would we do this? So this too belongs to a happy man, for he possesses the good things by nature. So the happy man, the eudaimonia, is one who he will have. They will produce the what? The good things by nature. And it is clear that it is better to pass the days together with friends and decent people than with strangers and people at random. Living well is not going to be. It's living with friends and decent people. It's not living with strangers and living with and people at random. Okay, for the happy man, the eudaimon, accordingly, there is need of friends. Hold on, my throat's going. I'm saying, why drink cola? Because caffeine, man. What then are the first set of what then are the first set of people speaking of? People say it's better. No, happy man should be. There's no need for friends, right? And in what respect are they saying what is true? So back to the thing. This idea that the person, the truly happy person, would need nobody. They'd be self sufficient and blessed. And what are the first set of people who are speaking of that? Are they really saying what is something is true, or is it that the many suppose those who are useful to them to be their friends? In other words, or is it this? Is this the view of the many, that the many suppose that those who are useful to them will be friends? The blessed person then will have no need of these sorts of friends, since the good things belong to him. In other words, the many seem to believe that okay, they need people to benefit them. So they need in other words, the many look at the blessed people as somebody who will be beneficial to them. The blessed person doesn't need these kind of friends. They don't need anyone. They don't need a person who will give things to them in that sense, right? The blessed person will have no need of these sorts of friends, since the good things belong to him. Nor indeed will he have need of those who are friends on account of what is pleasant, or he will only to a small degree, since his life is inherently pleasant, and he has no need for pleasure from without. In other words, his life is pleasant. He doesn't need this. Has enough. His life is pleasurable in itself. That he has in his life and how he's living his life, he's pleasant. So he doesn't need others to give him pleasure or to get pleasure from without of himself. Okay, so he doesn't need goods, benefits, and he doesn't need pleasures given addition because his life is already pleasant, right? So, yet because he has no needs of these sorts of friends, he is held not to need friends at all. In other words, most people have friends because of need. They need someone to benefit them, right? They need people. They need someone. They lack something and they need something. They need someone to care for them or benefit them, and they need someone they want, and the other gives them pleasure, right? Makes things more pleasant, more things are durable. So the happy man does not need friends in this way. He's saying here, right? But then they assume that because they don't need friends of this sort, it is held that they do not need friends at all. But this perhaps is not true, he says. Now he's arguing that the next step is that, okay, if they don't need friends in this way, means they have no need of friends at all. Well, that's a step too far. You're going too far here. That perhaps is not true. For it was said in the beginning that happiness is a certain activity, and that activity is clearly something that comes into being and not something that belongs to us like a sort of possession. So it's an action, it comes into being. It's not something that it's not a possession. But if being happy consists in living and being active, so if happy being a demon consists in living and being active, and if activity of a good person is a serious and pleasant in itself, as was said at the beginning, right, in book one, right, all the way back then, if what is but a beginning, if what is his own also falls among the pleasant things, and if we are better able to contemplate those near us than us ourselves. So we are better able to contemplate those near us than us ourselves, and their actions better than our own. Then the actions of the serious men who are friends are pleasant to those who are good, for both have things pleasant by nature. Now this is interesting. Now, commentators debate the meaning of both and the meaning of both in the sentence. Some arguing that it refers to the serious man and his friends. Others, Aquinas that it refers to the goods and to the good and the lovable. And others, Grant, i.e., Grant, the great English commentator, that it refers to actions that are both decent in one's own. So there's a double meaning here. And I think both. I think that the argument may be that they're both correct. That Aristotle is ambiguous here. The Greek is ambiguous here, referring to both who's being benefited, how the benefit is doing, and to what you know these things are benefiting. Right. That's the interesting thing. The both here means both in terms of serious man and his friends. The other refers to the good and the lovable, and also the last one is refers to both the decent and one's own. Right. This is a, and I think that this is the unique conception of the Greek. The Greek permits all three meanings to be present, and therefore we have to think about that. The question: what is really the good here? Maybe it is all three. Maybe the good will depend on the both here will depend on um, this question will depend upon how we understand. It might be true in all three cases to some degree. So the blessed person will need these sorts of friends if indeed he chooses to contemplate actions that are decent and his own. And such are the actions of a good man who is a friend. In other words, helping others that help it allows him to contemplate what is the right thing to do, contemplate actions that are decent and they're my actions. In other words, the friends are kind of aiders on this action of contemplation of what is to be done by being examples. Maybe okay. People also suppose that the happy person ought to live pleasantly. For a solitary person, then, life is hard, since it is not easy to be active continuously by oneself, whereas it is easier with others and in relation to others. In other words, if you're alone, it's hard to be. How can I say this? It's hard to be being active continuously all by oneself. It will hardly be pleasant. It will be that a solitary person, a life will be hard. Therefore, the fact that you have others will make life easier for you, and it will become more pleasant because you don't have to act. You can do. In other words, you're not going to have to act continuously. Whereas it is easier with others and in relation to others. The activity of the happy person then will be more continuous since it is pleasant in itself, right? The happy person is continuous because it's happy in itself, which it ought to be in the case of the blessed person, right? The blessed person is in other words, it's continuing, it's happy in itself. This, in other words, the blessed person is going to be what? Continuously happy because it's pleasant in itself. This ought to be the case in the pleasant person. The serious person, insofar he is serious, delights in action that accords with virtue and is disgusted by those that stem from vice. So he's pleased by, delights in the actions according to virtue, and is disgusted by those that stem in vice. Just as the musical person is pleased by beautiful melodies and pained by bad ones. So the metaphor is the musical person. The virtuous, the serious person is like the musical person. He is pleased by, he's delighted by actions that accord with virtue and disgusted with those by vice. The musical person is pleased by beautiful melodies and pained by bad ones. And in certain training in virtue would arise from living with those who are good, just as Theognis would too asserts, right? Theognis of Megea, a poet of the latter half of the 6th century who wrote didactic poems. At the end of the discussion of friendship, Aristotle quotes a line from the verse to which here he refers, which he refers to. See also 1179 B6, right? But but to those examining this in a manner more bound up with nature, the serious friend seems to be choiceworthy by nature to a serious man. For what is good by nature is said to be good and pleasant in itself to the serious person. So, therefore, in other words, this is interesting. He makes a very odd case here that the serious man, in other words, the serious friend seems to be more choiceworthy by nature to the serious man, to a serious man. For what is good by nature is said to be good and pleasant to itself to the serious person. So therefore, in other words, the kind of friend you would want would be a serious friend. So therefore, it's more bound examination, the more bound up with the nature. The serious friend seems to be choiceworthy by nature to a serious man. They define living in the case of animals. They define living in the case of animals as the capacity for perception. And in the case of human beings for the capacity of perception or thought. Now, here is some commentators: Aristotle, Gottlieb, and Joffre prefer capacity for perception and thought, but there's no basis in the extraordinary master for this reading. So it's and thought, it's or thought. In other words, perception or thought. This is the argument. This is in other words, the other there's no, it's not an and. This is the question is, it should be and, but no, Aristotle gives or. Um, Thinking. This is Dionysian. But a capacity is traced back, but a capacity is traced back to its activity. And what is authoritative or ruling resides in the activity. In other words, the ruling thing is the capacity is traced back to the activity, and what is ruling resides in the activity. So it seems that living is, in the authoritative sense or ruling sense, perceiving or thinking. So this idea of this logos is a kind of perceiving or thinking, deliberating, right? This is thinking about something. And living is among the things in themselves good and pleasant. So therefore, and living is among the things that are in themselves good and pleasant. So living itself is good and pleasant. And it is determinate. And the determinate is a part of the nature of the good. So therefore, there was that it is a determinate. This idea that living is a thing good and pleasant in themselves, good and pleasant. It is determinate. Determines things, and the determinate is part of the nature of the good. What is good by nature is also good for the decent person, on account of which it seems to all to be pleasant. In other words, what is good by nature is also good for the decent person, on account of which it seems to all to be pleasant. In other words, it doesn't seem to be just one person. That all would recognize, seem to all. But one ought not to take the case of a corrupt and ruined life, or a life lived in pain. For this life is indeterminate, as are its attributes. In other words, the happy life, the pleasant life, and the life of the good and pleasant life is determinate. In other words, this is what nature intends. This is the determinate. The what? The case of the corrupt or ruined life, or a life lived in pain, or for this sort of life, this both the corrupt life and the ruined life, and these are indeterminate. They're not determined by the nature of nature. Nature does not determine this. Does not intend this. We could say indeterminate means. I think what Aristotle means by indeterminate and indeterminate is what's intended, right? What is designed. What is designed, right? The design is that this is the design, the intent, the design. But these things happen. They're not the design. They're not planned. And the remark that follows, what concerns pain, will be more apparent, right? So therefore, in what follows pain, what discusses pain, right? But if living is itself good and pleasant, and it seems to be also from the fact that all people, and especially the decent and the blessed, long for it. To such people, life is most choice-worthy, and their life is most blessed. In other words, given that these things are, in other words, if living is itself good and pleasant, in other words, and it seems from the fact that all people, and especially the decent and the blessed, long for life in that sense, which is good and pleasant. It to such people, life is most choice-worthy, and their life is the most blessed. And if he who sees perceives that he sees, in other words, and if he who sees perceives that he sees, he who hears that he hears, he who walks that he walks, and similarly in the other cases, then there is something that perceives that we are active. In other words, I perceive that I'm, in other words, I see that I am, right? In other words, I perceive, I see, in other words, he who sees perceives that he sees. He's aware that he sees. That I hear. And that I walk. And therefore I perceive that we are active. The result is that if we are perceiving something, we also perceive that we are perceiving. In other words, we become aware of we perceive something, we're perceiving something. Our senses are getting them. We are aware that we are sensing them, right? We perceive that we are perceiving. And if we're thinking that we are thinking, in other words, when we're thinking, we are aware of our thinking. So we're perceiving and thinking. We are not only doing those things, but we're aware we're doing those things. We're reflective of that. And to perceive that we are perceiving or thinking is to perceive that we exist, that we are, we be, right? We exist. For to exist is to perceive or to think. This is, come on, I think, therefore I am, right? Right? In other words, the fact that I perceive, I know that and I think, I therefore perceive, that I'm perceiving and I am thinking, I know that I exist, that we exist. And to exist is to perceive or to think. Moreover, perceiving that one lives belongs among the things pleasant in themselves. In other words, oh God, that I'm aware that I am, that this is pleasant, this is a thing pleasant in itself. For life is a thing, for life is by nature a good thing. Life is by nature a good thing. And to perceive the good present in oneself, and to perceive the good that is present in oneself, that I'm living, is pleasant. And living is choice-worthy, and living is a choice-worthy thing, especially to those who are good. Because existing is good for them. Because existing is good for them and pleasant. And simultaneously, perceiving what is good in itself, they feel pleasure. In other words, they feel the good in itself. They feel, in other words, since living is a choice-worthy thing, that they perceive the good that is pleasant, and the living is a choice-worthy thing, especially to those who are good, because existing is good for them and pleasant, and in simultaneously perceiving what is good in itself, they feel pleasure. So what is he doing here? He's giving the rationale of how just being gives us pleasure for the human, because of the conception of thinking and perception in itself reflects a awareness of that, and that this is a kind of, in itself, a kind of life itself becomes pleasant, right? Pleasure, pleasant, good, good and pleasant. It's a good thing by nature. Life is by nature a good thing, and to perceive the good the good present in oneself is pleasant. And living is a choice-worthy thing, especially to those who are good, because existing is good for them and pleasant. And for simultaneously perceiving what is good in itself, they feel pleasure. And if, as the serious man stands in relation to himself, so he stands in relation to a friend. For a friend is a different self, right? The friend is a different. The serious man stands to himself. He also stands in relation to a friend, because what is a friend is a different self. Then, just as one's own existence is trustworthy to each, so too is the existence of a friend, or nearly so. For a friend, or nearly so. Existing is, as we saw, a choiceworthy thing, because a person's perception that he is good, and that this perception is pleasant on its own accord. Accordingly, one ought to share in the friend's perception that he exists. So let me repeat. Get interrupted again. Keep my wife's gardening, so she interrupts all the time. Accordingly, one ought to share in the friend's perception and that he exists. Accordingly, this is the last paragraph here, right? Accordingly, one ought to share in the friend's perception that he exists, and that this would come to pass by living together and sharing a community of speeches and thoughts. For this is what living together would seem to mean in the case of human beings, and not as with cattle merely feeding at the same place. In other words, as a human beings, it's not only about feeding at the same place. Cattle living together means eating at the same place. No, for human beings, it's what? It's sharing, it's living together and sharing a community of speeches and thought, conversations, and thinking about things. This is how they how they come to live together. So, if for a blessed person, existing is something choiceworthy in itself, since it is good by nature and pleasant. In other words, if this good person, blessed person, existing is something choiceworthy in itself, since it is good by nature and pleasant, and nearly so too is the existence of a friend, then friends would be among the choiceworthy things. But that which is choiceworthy for him ought to be his, or each in respect to, um, or each in this respect, he will be in need. In other words, again, in other words, existence too. In other words, this idea that the blessed person is choice worthy, since the good by nature is since it is good by nature and pleasant, right? Nearly too is the existence of the friend. Then the friend would be among the choice worthy things. But that that which is choice worthy for him ought to be his, or else in this respect he will be in need. In other words, if he doesn't have it, he lacks. He doesn't have what he needs in that sense. He needs the other. He needs the other. We have the human needs the other in this sense, because it's truly pleasant thing is not only thinking on ourselves, but sharing in thought and speeching with others, as each said in that sense. The truly blessed. In other words, he ought to be his, or else in this respect he will be in need. Accordingly, he who will be happy, he will need serious friends. Happy will need serious friends. The happy person needs to be paired with people, other humans. He's not going to be alone. It's no the blessed life is not a life alone. It is not that's a man on our gods. Human beings are not gods. Gods can live by themselves. A god, maybe a truly god, can live by himself, or something so divine and so perfect could live by himself. But humans are political animals. Humans, and therefore the good man, the serious and good man will need other serious good men as friends. And this is how he ends the chapter. We'll stop here. Any comments or questions, please put them below, and I'll see them. I'll respond to them, or I'll help answer them if it needs be. If you like the video, hit like the video, please. It helps the algorithm. It helps grows the channel. It gets the YouTube to move us up when people search for Aristotle's ethics or anything like these kind of themes. So like it, hit the like button, share it far and wide, share it in your social media, share it account to friends, share it to your friends. Encourage if you've not subscribed, Please consider subscribing. Again, this helps the channel grow. We need to grow some more. I'd like to get to the magical number 500. As you're watching this, maybe a couple of years from now, people come across this thing and think, "Oh, wow, oh, this is not this. They're already above that number." No. At the time of this recording, no. I'm getting closer and closer. We have to get to that magical number. But those of you not subscribed, please subscribe. Encourage others to come check the channel out, check the playlist, and not only for Aristotle's Ethics, maybe for other works we've covered. Another thing you can do is you want to follow me on social media. The social media links are below. I'm more active on, honestly, Facebook and a little bit on Twitter, but mine should be just. I'm still been on mine. I occasionally use it, but I've been having problems for a couple of while. Something about security issues and things like this. The other thing you can do is you want to follow me on my. You want to know more, see my research and see my stuff as a scholar, see myself as an academic scholar. To know more about me, about that, you can check my research out even there. Go to the academic social media below the social media links. The academic social media links are below those, the social media links. And then next is that if you want to help me to do what I do, a little bit of, aid, it says, because this takes money. This takes time and money. It takes time. That time could be spent teaching or making money elsewhere. But I'm doing this as a public service in a certain way, hoping people will benefit from this. Maybe that's we don't really benefit from it. You're just you're just arrogant doing these things. Okay. Well, I hope so. I hope people somehow are using this to some degree. But if you can help, do so by Patreon or Subscribestar. Links are below. Another way you can help is to buy one of my books. You can do so through your local bookseller. If you ask them to order things, they do. If not, go online to get a books. Online distributors like Barnes and Nobles or Amazon or Libris or A&E or whatever the various ones that in your area. Or you can contact the publishers. Maybe they'll send it to you. Warsaw University Book might only sell you the ebook. I think they're out of the hardcovers when the last time I looked. So that's it. Well, next time we meet, we'll look at chapter 10 of book 9, and we'll finish up. Well, take care and have a good day. Take care. Bye-bye.